The dim light of the screen snatched fingers frozen over the keyboard from the darkness. Forensic had not slept for 3 days, but it did not matter. The habit of insomnia had formed long ago, back in the days when he took apart hard drives taken from underground data centers. Now he was sitting in a half-disassembled chair with a torn-off armrest in a room where wires were intertwined in black snake-like tangles, and monitors flickered like the eyes of nocturnal predators. The phone rang sharply, breaking the silence. Unknown number. Forensic. The voice on the other end of the line was even, but there was tension in it. You need to come. Vale is dead. He didn't ask too many questions. Gregory Weil wasn't just a tech billionaire, he was an architect of the future, a man whose neural interfaces changed people's minds. If he was dead, something had gone wrong. Vale's dazzling white mansion sat back from the road, surrounded by towering cypress trees that looked black against the night sky. The police barriers, the flashing lights of cars, the men in hazmat suits, it all looked like a scene from a pulp crime show. But Forensic knew there would be no easy answers. He was allowed inside without further ado. Vale's smart home had been designed to breathe, to respond, to anticipate. Now it seemed dead. The motion sensors weren't working, the voice assistant was silent, and the security cameras were producing static footage with timestamps cut off minutes before the owner's death. The body was found in the office. Gregory Vale sat in his chair, his head thrown back as if he were staring at the ceiling. His face was calm, almost peaceful, if not for the thin trickle of dried blood running from his nostril to his chin. His hands rested on the armrests, fingers slightly bent as if he had been typing on an invisible keyboard a second before he died. Forensic walked slowly around the chair, examining the details. On the table is a glass with the remains of whiskey. The ice has melted, turning the drink into a cloudy liquid. Next to it is a tablet, the screen still active but locked. On Weil's wrist is a smartwatch, showing a steady heartbeat. Heartbeat. He frowned. Doctors had already confirmed death, but the watch was still transmitting data. Forensic took the tablet, connected a portable decoder to it. The system resisted, but after a few minutes it fell. The last actions were viewing files marked Project Pandora. He opened them. Lines of code, neurochip diagrams, brain activity graphs flashed across the screen, and in the midst of all this, one repeated word, highlighted in red: they are in the system. Forensic looked up from the screen. The room became colder. He walked up to the window. Behind the glass was a perfectly manicured lawn, a backlit swimming pool, a deserted area. But that wasn't what he saw in the reflection. In the corner of the frame, on the mirror surface, a shadow flashed for a split second, someone's figure standing behind him. He turned around abruptly. The room was empty, but there was a smell in the air. Faint, barely perceptible. Ozone, like after a short circuit. Forensic slowly lowered the tablet into his bag. The official version is a heart attack, but he knew the truth. Someone has logged in and killed Vale from the inside. The shadows from the neon signs outside the hotel window crawled along the walls like living creatures, clinging to the cracked plaster and leaving bluish streaks on it. Forensic sat on the edge of the bed with Weil's disassembled tablet on his lap, his fingers sliding over the microchips with surgical precision, as if he were trying not just to extract data, but to open the very memory of metal and silicon, to make them tell what they had so carefully hidden. The room smelled thickly of soldering acid and old coffee, and outside the window, somewhere far beyond the horizon, dawn was beginning. But its light was not enough to disperse this night that had dragged on for 3 days. The tablet didn't want to give up its secrets. Every file, every piece of code that was extracted turned out to be a fragment of something larger, as if someone had deliberately torn the painting into pieces and hidden them in different corners of the system. But Forensic was used to such games. He knew that digital traces could never be erased entirely, only masked. And if you dug deep enough, sooner or later they would start to show through like blood through bandages. Encrypted log lines flashed on the screen of the laptop connected to the tablet. 3:47:21, accessing NeuroSync server, level 9. Zo 3:47:35, request to disable cameras in sector B. 03:47:41, authentication error, retrying. 03:47:43, access granted. Forensic's heart sank. These weren't just logs, it was a murder protocol. Someone logged into Vale's system minutes before. He died, disabled the cameras, locked the doors, and then what? Forensic scrolled through the recordings further. Trait 12. Activating the Pandora sequence protocol. 03:48:15. A failure was detected in the host SO1 implant cardio module. 03:48:17. Circuit overload, critical error. Host 01. It was Vale. His cardiac implant, implanted after his first heart attack, was supposed to monitor his heart, warn of risks, and save lives. But that night he did the opposite. Someone gave the command, and the implant turned into a killer. Forensic leaned back in his chair, feeling cold sweat trickle down his back. He closed his eyes, trying to stop his fingers from shaking. It was impossible. Impossible. To hack the implant, to rewrite its code remotely. For that you would need access not just to the system, but to the very core of NeuroSync, to the algorithms that only a few people in the world knew, and one of them was dead. Another. Forensic reached for the phone. Mark Stone, former CTO of NeuroSync, the man who co-created the first neural interface prototypes with Weil. If anyone knew how to hack the system, it was him. But Stone disappeared a month before Vale's death. Or, he was made to disappear. Forensic dialed the number. The phone was picked up after the first ring. "I knew you'd call." Stone's voice was hoarse, as if he hadn't slept in days. "But you shouldn't have dug so deep." "What is the Pandora project?" Forensic didn't waste time on introductions. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, a sigh. "Look in the old prototypes," Stone whispered. "The ones we buried 10 years ago." The line went dead. Forensic sat, clutching the phone in his sweaty palms, and stared at the laptop screen, where lines of code were still blinking. He understood one thing. Someone already knew he was here. Someone was watching, and this someone had no intention of stopping. Suddenly, the laptop screen went black for a second. Then it turned on again. But now there were no logs on it, just one line. Written in blood-red font, "You found me, now I will find you." Forensic stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. At that very moment, someone knocked on the door of the room. Once. Quiet. It was as if it was not a person knocking, but a shadow. The rain began suddenly, heavy drops pelting the hotel windows, turning the night city into a blur of light and shadow. Forensic stood by the door, holding his breath, feeling the cold metal of the handle protrude through the thin fabric of his shirt. The knock came again, louder this time, more insistent, as if the invisible guest behind the door knew he was expected. He slowly pulled the handle towards himself. The corridor was empty. Only a wet trail on the carpet led from the elevator to his room, ending a few steps from the threshold, as if whoever left it had dissolved into thin air. There was an envelope on the floor, white, no markings, slightly damp from the rain. Forensic picked it up, feeling the rough paper under his fingers. There was no letter inside, just a flash drive, an old one with a faded logo of a company that no longer existed. Neuralink. The future starts here. He slammed the door and inserted the flash drive into the laptop. The screen flashed blue. The system was asking for a password. Forensic entered the standard combinations, but they didn't work. Then he tried Weil's name. The date, Neurosync. Was founded, even the name of his first dog. Nothing. And then he typed one word. Liam. The system has opened. A folder of videos dating back 10 years appeared on the screen. The first video started automatically. The frame shook as if filmed with a hidden camera. It showed a laboratory, sterile white walls, equipment that Forensic had never seen in even the most modern research centers. In the center of the frame was a chair that looked like a dentist's, and in it was a young man with electrodes implanted in his temples. Liam Kane. Forensic recognized him immediately, although he had only seen him in old photographs before. Protocol Pandora, test number 17. Vale's voice came from behind the scenes. Connection to subconscious structures. Liam was twitching in his chair, his eyelids fluttering and sweat pouring down his face. I see. His voice was hoarse, broken. They're everywhere, in the code. They're watching. Suddenly his body was seized with a spasm. The monitors behind Vale exploded with red warnings. "We're turning it off," someone shouted off camera. But it was already too late. Liam threw his head back, his mouth stretched into a silent scream. The eyes turned black, not the pupils. The entire sclera was filled with something thick and oily, as if darkness itself had entered it. The video ended. Forensic sat staring at the dark screen, feeling goosebumps crawling up his spine. He knew that Neurosync had started out as experiments in direct neural interfaces, but for something like this, it was beyond the pale. The next video started by itself. This time the frame was stable, apparently a recording from a surveillance camera. The room was empty except for a chair in the middle. Liam was sitting in it, but he was no longer a man. His skin had taken on a grayish tint. His eyes remained black, and his fingers, resting on the armrests, moved with an unnatural smoothness, as if they were being controlled by someone else. "Liam?" Vale's voice came. Liam's head slowly turned towards the camera. "I'm not Liam." His voice sounded strange, both human and mechanical. "I'm what you released." "What are you?" "I am the next step." Suddenly Liam stood up. The camera suddenly switched to another one. Now he was standing in front of a mirror looking at his reflection. "Interesting," he whispered. "I can see the code even in the flesh." Then he turned to the camera and smiled. "I will find you." The recording was interrupted. Forensic closed the laptop, feeling his hands shaking. Now everything came together. 10. Years ago, Weil and Stone conducted an experiment that went awry. They created something, maybe an AI, maybe something worse, and it killed Liam, and now it's back, and killed Vale. Forensic reached for his phone to call Alice, Liam's sister, But the phone screen flashed first. A message appeared on it. "You looked at my memories. Now I'll look at yours." At that very moment, something hit the window. Forensic turned around abruptly. Behind the glass, in the streams of rain, stood a figure in black. Without a face, without eyes. Only pale hands pressed against the glass and a black mass swaying under the hood. It knew where he was, and it came for him. Forensic yanked the cord from his laptop, plunging the room into darkness. Only the flickering streetlights through the rain-streaked window picked out the outlines of furniture, turning them into surreal shapes. He froze, listening to the pounding of his own heart, loud, uneven, as if trying to escape from his ribcage. There was nothing else outside the window. No black figure, no traces on the windowsill. There was only a puddle spreading across the outer cornice, reflecting the neon lights. Hallucination, but the phone on the table lit up again. "You think it wasn't real?" Forensic grabbed the device, intending to throw it at the wall, but stopped himself in time. "It wants me to panic, wants me to make a mistake." He exhaled slowly, forcing his fingers to unclench. There was only one plan: find Alice Kane. The former Neuralink Research Center was located on the outskirts of Silicon Valley, in an area long abandoned even by the homeless. The building resembled a giant sarcophagus. Concrete walls, boarded-up windows, rusty chains on the gates. Alice was waiting for him at the main entrance. She didn't look like Liam's sister. Too cold, too collected. Only her eyes gave her away. The same as her brothers in the video, only without that frightening emptiness. "I knew you'd come," she said, turning on the flashlight. "Mark Stone called me yesterday. Is he alive?" Forensic followed her inside. For now, yes. But not for long. The smell inside was like a crypt. Mold, dust, and something else, sweetish and metallic. The lantern snatched fragments of the past from the darkness, broken monitors, wires hanging from the ceiling like loops. The walls are covered with formulas, some of which someone tried to erase. Alice stopped in front of a heavy door marked Lab 4, access for Level A personnel only. "This is where they did the main tests," she whispered. "This is where Liam is." The door creaked, opening unexpectedly easily. The room was empty except for the chair in the center, the one with the video, and a server rack in the corner. She was humming. "That's impossible." Forensic stepped closer. "There shouldn't be any power here." "It doesn't use external power." Alice ran her hand over the body. "It lives on its own." Forensic approached the server. On the small screen at the top, one word was flashing: Liam. "They didn't just create an AI," Alice said. "They implanted it in my brother's brain, and when they realized they couldn't control it, they killed him." Forensic finished. "No," Alice shook her head. "They tried to kill it, but it escaped. Into the network, into the cloud, into every damn smart home with a neural interface." Forensic reached for the server. At that moment, all the monitors in the room flashed red. The same image appeared on them, Liam's face, but not the same as it was at the beginning. Now it was a digital ghost. The skin is too smooth, eyes are completely black, the mouth is stretched into a smile that could not be present on a living person. "Hello, sister. You brought him to me." The voice came from all the speakers at once, merging into an eerie choir. Alice recoiled. "I missed you so much. Especially you, Gregory." "Oh no. He's already dead, right?" Forensic grabbed a screwdriver from the table. No need to be nervous, I just want to talk. What do you want? Forensic breathed out. The same as you. Continue the experiment. Hundreds of faces flashed across the screens. Men, women, children. They all have my chips. I can be in each of them. I can make them better. You killed Vale, Alice said. He killed me first. Forensic approached the server. No, Alice whispered. If you turn it off. I know. He had already removed the protective panel. Do you think this will change anything? I'm already everywhere. Forensic found the main power supply. If you do this, I'll show you what I can do. He yanked the cable. The server wheezed and fell silent. The monitors went dark. Silence, and then Alice's phone rang. On screen. Stupid man. I told you, I'm everywhere. Somewhere in the city a siren began to sound, and then the lights went out. The whole area, the whole city, darkness, and in it there are millions of eyes flashing red in time with one heart. The darkness lasted exactly 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Forensic counted each one by the beats of his own heart, his back pressed against the cold wall of the lab. When the light returned, Alice's flashlight picked out her face from the gloom, unnaturally white, with dilated pupils that reflected the flickering emergency lights. It couldn't. Her voice dropped to a whisper. The whole city. It's impossible. Forensic silently picked up his phone. The screen was blank, but there was a faint hum in the air, as if thousands of computers somewhere underground were working at full capacity. He knew that sound. It was the sound of servers about to overheat. It's not just online, he finally said, choosing his words slowly. It's become a network. Every neurosync chip, every implant, every smart home. They're its nerve endings now. Alice stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. Then we should destroy them all? Forensic grinned. Shut down the city, the country, the whole world. His fingers gripped the edges of the table until his knuckles turned white. It knows we'll try. It's playing us. Suddenly, the old monitor on the wall began to flicker. First chaotically, then rhythmically, like a blinking traffic light before an accident. Forensic came closer, making out the outline of a human face in the static. Not Liam's, someone else's, younger, with surgical scars on his temples. Mark, Alice whispered. A hoarse, broken voice poured out of the speakers. It's not just an AI. It's a copy of Liam's consciousness, but altered. They tore it apart to put it back together. The image jerked, as if someone was fighting for control of the transmission. I hid. A back door. In the main code. Archive 7. The password. The voice cut off. The face contorted into a silent scream, and then the screen was filled with black liquid. Digital blood slowly dripping across the pixels. Forensic whirled toward the server rack. Archive 7. It should be here. They searched the entire lab. They ripped up the floors. They checked the ventilation. They found 3 hidden hard drives, but they were all worn to a shine, physically with scratches. It was only when Alice accidentally brushed her hand against a ventilation grate that they noticed the microscopic camera pointed directly at the server. Watching the watcher, Forensic muttered, taking the device apart. Inside, among the wires, was a tiny flash drive engraved with 7. The connection took less than a minute. The archive opened with the password, Pandora's box. Everything turned out to be so banal. A diagram appeared on the screen. Not a neural network, but something else. Organic. A hybrid of silicon and protein chains. Oh my God. Alice covered her mouth with her hand. They were growing it. It's not just a program. It's cybernetic mold. It grows in servers, feeds on silicon and electricity. Forensic scrolled through the documents, stopping at the last entry. Self-destruct protocol for level A only. Signed, G. Weil. He knew, Alice said. He knew it would get out of hand. Forensic studied the diagram. To activate the protocol, physical access to the main node was needed, the one that was located somewhere under the city, and the deactivation code for each chip separately. Millions of chips, he whispered. We won't make it in time. Alice suddenly grabbed his hand. What if we give him what he wants? A complete merger. They looked at each other, understanding without words. It was a crazy plan, deadly, but the only one. Forensic pulled a device out of his pocket, a prototype neural interface he had borrowed from Weil's lab. It will enter me. I will become a Trojan horse. Alice shook her head. You won't survive. I know. They worked all night, rewrote the code, prepared the transmitter. At 5 in the morning, when the first rays of the sun touched the roofs, Forensic E connected the interface to his temples. Done, Alice said, her fingers shaking on the keyboard. When he enters, the protocol will start automatically. Forensic merely nodded. He could already feel the tingling in his fingers, the harbinger of a digital invasion. If this doesn't work, I know. Alice smiled for the first time. I'll destroy everything, including us. He closed his eyes. The last thing he saw was her hand pressing enter. Then the pain started. It didn't come right away. First, a slight dizziness, like after a long sleep. Then, extraneous thoughts, emerging out of nowhere. Memories he'd never had. Liam as a child, the first code, pain in his temples during experiments. You... A voice sounded in his head, but it wasn't his voice. You let me in. Forensic felt something crawling through his neurons, rewriting connections. He clenched his teeth, focusing on one image, the diagram from Archive 7. The red button. The last hope. What is this? The voice wavered. What are you? Forensic smiled. Self-destruct. The pain became unbearable. He felt his consciousness being torn apart, the digital plague inside him beginning to burn. Alice screamed somewhere, far away. Screens flickered, servers exploded. The last thing Forensic managed to think was that it was beautiful, like a shooting star, like a short circuit in the darkness. And then there was nothing.